How's everybody doing? Ross and David, you want to come join me? And anybody from any of these companies here? Anybody? Don't all rush the stage at once, right? Ooh. Hi, I'm Michelle Lewis. Thank you. On behalf of Songwriters of North America, aka SONA, welcome to our Los Angeles Songwriter Town Hall. Thank you. I will say that showing up is really the hardest part, right? Like the biggest deal. And that's because that's what they're, clearly it's hard for them. That's what they're counting on us to not do, right? They're counting on our short attention spans and our limited, bandwidth for these kinds of things. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to take a picture of how crowded this room is. But wait, don't smile, because we're going to send this to, yeah, you can do that. We're going to send this to @Spotify. Yeah. No smiling. Serious. Be scary. I'm terrified. No, that was terrifying. Genuinely terrifying. Okay. It's kind of funny that this thing that decimated the value of our work and kind of like put our profession at the most risk is the same thing that could end up saving us. This has become a tool for advocacy, for amplifying our voices, and really for organizing. I mean, over last summer, I was recovering from this random illness, and I was sort of stuck in my house in yoga pants at my living room table on my laptop, and I basically kind of commandeered a music army of songwriters, artists, producers, publishers, music attorneys, managers, through an email list with all these basically every time a company would try to block our path, or a senator needed to be convinced or educated or something like that, we would basically have this arsenal of really mean tweets kind of ready to go. Actually, matter of fact, Kay Hanley, where's Kay? There's Kay. She's the co-executive director of SONA, and she has this thing that basically is never underestimate the power of a mean tweet, particularly if it's true. Because they are really thin-skinned to them, turns out. And so through all these sort of pointed tweets at senator by senator and fight by fight, state by state, we kind of everybody in this room who was involved took each thing down. It was fucking awesome. So who in here actually tweeted at a senator by just clap? Nice. And who called? Who actually called? Yeah. So really, thank you, because you are responsible for pulling our profession into the future. Really, that through this thing, we were able to make a real change in our industry, and we were able to get the NMPA passed. Right? And one of the other lessons we learned from this was how important unanimity is and consensus. We couldn't have done it without everybody working together. So when the MMA was first born, it was, songwriters, publishers, our performance rights organizations, our PROs, kind of all partnered together with the digital service providers and the legislators, and came to an agreement. And we really started from there, went in with an agreement, and built the circle, really widened the circle so that, when artists got involved through the Classics Act, the recording industry, producers got involved with the AMP Act, we sort of kind of added sort of fix by fix to the MMA. So it became this list of fixes and updates to outdated copyright law, and grew the circle till it became this almost like unstoppable force. And so by October of last year, the Music Modernization Act was signed into law by, that's another story, by the president. And so it is now the law of the land. And let's keep going. Because look, you're all here. This is amazing. We need to like keep this momentum going. That's the main part, is like all of us working together, partnering, linking arms, being a, giving a little to get a little. That's sort of how this whole thing worked. And so thank you again for all the help you've already given and for being here tonight, because this is amazing. One of the big wins for songwriters in the MMA will be on the performance royalty side, where you'll see some upticks in our, as the licensing deals come up for renewal, we'll start seeing a raise there. And then another big win, kind of the big win, was the creation and sort of enshrining of this new streaming mechanical right. And that's what we fought really hard for with the publishers. So this is a real win for songwriters and publishers moving into the future. It's like, I call this right the modernization part of the Music Modernization Act. This is the part that really keeps us going. This gives us a future. But now it seems like the DSPs were sort of fighting alongside us with their fingers crossed behind their backs. That was sort of now in light of what's going on, which David will get more into. And he'll get into it in a much more professional way than I will. Because if they were here, I'd really want to know, what the fuck? Why did you do that? Why were you kind of fighting alongside of us and then to sort of turn around and not want to pay follow through with the promise that the MMA was going to be? We needed these fixes. The things that were outdated that got fixed were crushing the music creators, the very people that make the product that they sell. In one case, it's the only product they sell. Speaking of Spotify, I think that songwriters feel particularly stung by Spotify because of, they were the ones that really went out of their way to ingratiate themselves within our community, right? They had billboards and writing camps and awards and their ambassador program, and that's kind of how they hushed our complaints about what they weren't paying us. So dividing us up into these categories, now it seems a little cynical and divisive, purposefully divisive. So I think that felt particularly stinging to us, and secret geniuses, let's see who shows up at their awards this winter. See how the attendance is, right? Curious about that. I want you also to know that I really did invite them. I swear. I sent a really nice email. It was a nice email, right? I actually was this is genuine. We'd love to give you a chance to sort of explain what happened, tell us what's going on. We've been your partners in this, So I really sent the email, copied a few people. Some of them were even my friends. Not a word, nothing, crickets. Nice. So that's who's not here tonight. But let's talk about who is here tonight, okay? I think every town hall about advocacy should have a glossary with all the acronyms and the terms that are involved. There's all these organizations, right? And all these new things that kind of pop up in MLC, CRB, all these things. But the organizations that we've linked arms with and sort of partnered with on this that's who we kind of want to thank and appreciate right now. First of all, I will say my organization is called SONA, SONA, and it's Songwriters of North America. We are a grassroots, broke-ass songwriter organization, boots on the ground. You know, we started as 10 of us 4 years ago. Now we're like well over 600 people. Yeah, right? If you're not a member, join. If you're a songwriter, we're Los Angeles based, and we also have a kind of ace in the hole, which is Dina LaPolt. Do you know Dina LaPolt? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some of you might know. She's very quiet. She's very subtle. Hard to get her to talk. Yeah. So she's like our nuclear option in DC. She's our power move. She's a part of SONA. She's our legal advisement, and when we have trouble in Washington, we send her, and she blows shit up, and it's awesome. We also partner with NSAI, or the Nashville Songwriters Association International. If you're in Nashville, yes, if you're a member of that, thank you. If you are a Nashville person, please join under the leadership of Bart Herbison, who is just fantastic advocate and champion for songwriters. They've been around for way longer than we have, and they really know what they're doing, way more than we do. So definitely join NSAI if you're in Nashville. But being a part of these songwriter organizations is really important. Then, And the Writer is started. It was started by my friend Ross Golan over here. He has created a community and like a real hub for information, getting the word out, and I feel like goes way above and beyond to elevate our profession and pull the curtain back and sort of show what goes into it. And I think that really like it gets people interested and understand. It helps people appreciate the value of what we do. And he's an amazing advocate and was a big part of like the whole music army force that got the MMA passed. So thank you, Ross. Our other partners in all of this are the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and GMR. Our PROs, ASCAP is here, actually. My buddies at ASCAP. I love them. That's PROs that stand for Performance Rights Organizations. I feel like I should say that because some people actually don't know that yet. So they helped us. They're amazing advocates. They're a big part of the team of getting the MMA passed and moving into the future. And they're here. DSPs, digital service providers, except for, let's all clap for Apple for a second. Let's all clap for Apple. They've been really good guys. They've like not joined the appeal. They're really standing up for creators, which I really appreciate. Other DSPs are like Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, and Google, who are all involved in the appeal, which you'll get more into. They're not here. UBC. Who is here are my final acronym, the NMPA, that stands for the National Music Publishers Association, National Music Publishers Association, and they are very much here, and they are very much our partners. They've been fighting alongside of us, sometimes with us, but we always work it out, and they never back down from a fight, particularly under the leadership of their president, David Israelite. He has become a really good friend, but I'm also constantly awed by how well he does this. He is such an amazing advocate, and he's so good at breaking down what's going on and explaining it without oversimplifying. He's such a master at that I'm really relieved and happy that he's here to explain this to us. He is fighting this fight kind of in real time right now and has firsthand knowledge. So it's amazing that he's here all the way from DC to help us through this, what's going on. You're going to find out a lot. So please welcome my dear friend, David Israelite from the NMPA.
Thank you so much, Michelle. You're far too kind. And it's incredible that SONA has been in existence now for just 4 years. And what you've accomplished in those 4 years, you and your entire leadership team, is simply amazing. And so I really applaud everything that you've done. I also just have to recognize someone here who I consider to be the most important songwriter advocate on the planet. He has been an absolute champion for writers and is someone that I consider not just a friend, but really a mentor and a leader, and that's Paul Williams, who's here from ASCAP. So the Music Modernization Act was a minor miracle. For any of you that watch anything that goes on in Washington, D.C., the idea that Congress agreed on something unanimously is just shocking, especially when it comes to copyright, to music, but it happened. And we worked with digital companies to do a lot of things that went into the Music Modernization Act. It was the first copyright legislation in 2 generations, and it was a moment in time where I think a lot of people believed that this was the start of a new relationship, where we were going to be able to work with digital companies as partners to move forward as business partners and really for the betterment of the creative community. And the Music Modernization Act did that. It's got a lot of great things in it that are going to benefit both songwriters, artists, labels, publishers, producers, and digital companies. But I think what we're learning is, unfortunately, that moment in time is not going to change the fundamental dynamic that while we are business partners, that much of what they are doing is hostile to your interests. And it's showing up in a couple of different places. Right now, we're trying to negotiate how we build this new entity that's going to provide the new blanket license under the law. They have to pay for it. We get to run it. And now that the law is passed, we are in a fight because they don't want to pay for it properly. Those negotiations basically broke down when the digital companies suggested that we stick 7 people in a WeWork space, which would be attractive because they have free beer there. And that would be the new entity. It's showing up at the Justice Department, where we have potentially the idea of changing these consent decrees that govern ASCAP and BMI. And when we got called to meetings to talk about this, the people on the other side of the table were Spotify and other digital companies that were fighting against changes to the consent decrees that would help songwriters and publishers. But the place where it's showing up the most has to do with the Copyright Royalty Board. So for those of you that are not in the weeds of this, every 5 years, 3 judges in Washington, D.C. have a trial. On one side of the courtroom are publishers and songwriters. On the other side of the courtroom are these companies. And after a long-fought, many witnesses, expert trial, they come up with a decision about what digital companies should pay songwriters. And we did that in 2017. And at the end of 2017, the trial was over. And in January of 2018, the 3-judge panel came out with their decision. And their decision was to raise rates for songwriters by over 44% over the next 5-year period. It was a tremendous victory. It was only the second meaningful increase in songwriter rates in 110 years. And the judges did this because they recognized the value of your songs to these digital companies. If you take a look at what the court ordered, you see that in the the rate used to be 10.5% of their revenue, and the court ordered that over the 5-year period it would grow to 15.1% of their revenue. And they also created other tests that could even raise that higher, depending on how much they ended up paying record labels who are in a free market and get to negotiate their deals with these digital companies. And so it was a very good decision. And historically, if you put it in perspective, back when we used to sell physical copies of vinyl, 8-tracks, cassettes, CDs, the split of money between record labels and artists and songwriters and publishers was about 12-1. Now that's back in the area of controlled composition clauses and other challenges that we faced. You move to the download world where controlled composition clauses no longer could deduct from your rate, and that split was still about 9-1. This decision brought us to a place of where songwriters and publishers we're getting a comparative value against the labels and artists who get to negotiate their deals of just 3.8 to 1, which means the money was being divided more fairly, more evenly, more appropriately than any time in the history of the music industry. This was a big win. But what happened was, on the last possible day, at the end of the day, 4 of the 5 companies that were parties to that trial decided that they were going to appeal that decision and fight the decision. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not here to bash these companies. I'm not here to call them names. They are necessary for our industry. They are our business partners. But when they put out an explanation of why they were appealing the case, because a lot of songwriters and publishers reacted in a very negative way when they decided to appeal, especially, as Michelle mentioned, because we had just worked together to pass the Music Modernization Act. Spotify put out a blog that was intended for songwriters. And in that blog, they attempted to explain why they were appealing the decision. And what they were trying to tell you was so infuriating to me that I felt that we needed to respond, not by calling them names, but by actually explaining the issues, because what I have found is that songwriters want to know what's going on in these issues, and they can understand exactly what's going on with their businesses, and so we're going to get into exactly what's going on. In this blog they put out, they made 5 basic points. I'm going to read you verbatim their argument, and then I'm going to explain the truth. First point, they ask themselves, by the way, questions, and then they answer their own questions. That was the style of the blog they put out. So Spotify wrote, is Spotify suing songwriters? No, Spotify is not suing songwriters. Spotify, Amazon, Google, and Pandora have each individually appealed the CRB outcome. The NMPA or NMPA also filed an appeal. An appeal is the only avenue for anyone to clarify elements of the CRB ruling. Now let's unpack that. It is true that NMPA also appealed, but they are deceiving you, because the only reason NMPA appealed is because we had to after they appealed. We told them that if they didn't appeal, we were not going to appeal, and we weren't planning to. We only technically filed an appeal because we had to put on a response case when we get to the appellate trial. So to suggest that, well, everybody's appealing, therefore we're all equally culpable, is to try to deceive you. The second point, with the language of, to clarify elements of the CRB ruling. They're not trying to clarify anything. They're trying to change the outcome, and we'll explain why. Second point that Spotify makes. Does Spotify think songwriters deserve to be paid more? Yes. This is important to songwriters, and it's important to Spotify. The industry needs to continue evolving to ensure that the people who create the music we all love, artists and songwriters, can earn a living. The question is how best to achieve that goal. Now, when we were at that trial, Spotify had an opportunity to put on a case. They could have proposed any rate structure they wanted. And so if they believed that songwriters deserved more, but just in a different way, they could have proposed that. That's not what they did. Spotify proposed at this trial to cut the rates that existed when we went into the trial. The next slide will give you a very interesting proposal to look at this. Spotify was paying you about 12.5% of their revenue in 2017. Take an average songwriter who maybe was earning $30,000 from interactive streaming. What the decision calls for is an increase in that to 15.1%. In real dollars, that means that that songwriter who was making $30,000 would now be making $36,240. What Spotify proposed in their case, which could have been anything they wanted to propose, was to cut the old rate down to the 10.5%, which means that songwriter would take a hit down to $25,200. So how they can suggest that they believe you should get more, but just not in the way the court proposed, is to deny what they proposed the court do, which was to cut the old rate. Not just keep it flat, but to take it lower. That's what Spotify proposed. Third point, do you support the CRB rates? Spotify's answer, we are supportive of U.S. effective rates rising to 15% between now and 2022, provided they cover the right scope of publishing. But the CRB's 15% rate doesn't account for all these rights. For example, it doesn't consider the cost of rights for videos and lyrics. They're right about that. The CRB decision doesn't account for videos and lyrics, and there's a reason why. Videos and lyrics are not part of the compulsory license law. The CRB court can't give a rate for lyrics and for video because you get to negotiate those rights in a free market. So for example, when Apple wants to offer a service that has lyrics and has videos, what Apple did was take the old rate of 10.5% and say, we're going to pay extra for video and lyrics, which is why Apple was paying about 13.5% instead of the statutory rate of 10.5%. So now when the court says that your reproduction rights alone are worth 15.1%, that means that if you want to also offer video and lyrics, you should be getting paid somewhere in the neighborhood of 18 to 19% of revenue. So Spotify wants to try to trick you by suggesting they support the 15% rate, but what they're actually saying is only if you add in rights that the court doesn't have any authority to include in their decision. Completely disingenuous. Next, so why is Spotify appealing? The CRB rate structure is complex and there were significant flaws in how it was set. A key area of focus in our appeal will be the fact that the CRB's decision makes it very difficult for music services to offer bundles of music and non-music offerings. This will hurt consumers who will lose access to them. These bundles are key to attracting first-time music subscribers so we can all keep growing the revenue pie for everyone. This is very simple. I think that they're counting on you not understanding what the court decision said about bundles, but we can make it very simple. Take a bundle of a Spotify subscription with any non-music product, in this example, a gym membership. You pay $50 to join a gym, you get Spotify to go along with it. The way that Spotify wants it to work is they want to be able to say, the first thing you do is you value the non-music product, in this case, the gym membership. If the gym membership is arguably worth the $50, you then apply the rate to what's left over. In this case, 0. What the court ordered is that you must value the music product separately even when you bundle it with something else. So in this example, if Spotify is selling a subscription for $10 alone, and you bundle it with a gym membership all in for $50, you have to break out the music service, value it at $10, and apply the rate to that $10. What Spotify and Amazon want to do is offer their products as part of other offerings where they are able to then effectively apply the rate to a balance of 0. It is an indefensible position. My guess is they wouldn't dare come on this stage and try to defend what they're doing with bundles. But that's what the issue about bundles is all about. Finally, so what's the right way to split the pie? Music services, artists, songwriters, and other rights holders share the same revenue stream, and it's natural for everyone to want a bigger piece of that pie. But that cannot come at the expense of continuing to grow the industry via streaming. The CRB judges set the new publishing rates by assuming that record labels would react by reducing their licensing rates, but their assumption is incorrect. However, we are willing to support an increase in songwriter royalty provided the license encompasses the right scope of publishing rights. What they write here, and I don't use this term lightly, is just a lie. The court actually said the opposite in a footnote that we have now put out publicly from the decision. The court did not assume that record labels would reduce their rate to compensate for what the publishers get, but there's a very simple solution. Put us in the same spot as record labels and artists and let us negotiate the value of our copyright with a Spotify. That would solve this problem, but Spotify opposes that. And of course, we don't have that right. This idea that somehow this is a tension between labels and publishers or artists and songwriters is a diversionary tactic. It's not. The value of your songs is valued independently by this court, and that's what they have to pay you. What Spotify and record labels do between them is in a free market. That can work itself out. If we could be in a free market, we would be part of that equation, but we're not. But to suggest that somehow the court raised your rates assuming that labels would take less is simply not true. So that's the substance of what Spotify put out about this CRB appeal, and I'm trying to give you the truth. Now, this is a legal process that's going to play out. NMPA is going to fight this appeal with everything we have, and I expect we're going to win. The reason why we're doing these town halls and the reason why you see so many songwriters speaking out is because we believe it's important that everyone understand what this is about. It's not just simply in a backroom court, but rather this is a relationship question. And if digital services want to try to cut your rates, not only do they have to go to court to try to do it, they have to face you if they want to try to do that, which is why we're calling them out in this way with town halls like this. So again, I don't want to be here and bash them. I want to work with them as business partners, but I cannot allow them to put out this type of material to songwriters without you knowing the truth. And for those of you that have relationships with these companies, ask these questions. Take them. We'll provide these slides to anyone who would like a copy. Take them to who you know in the digital companies and ask them to explain any one of these points that Spotify has made. Because I think, quite honestly, what they're trying to spin to you is indefensible. This is a simple equation for them. They want to pay you less. They are going to court in the hope that the court will overturn a 2-year trial and a decision by a 3-judge panel that has suggested that you deserve a pay increase for only the second time in 110 years. And so that's why we're here. I want to thank you all for caring enough to come to an event like this. We're going to answer questions at the end, but I want to make sure that Ross has enough time to speak as well. So thanks so much for being here for this.
Yeah, it does. Oh, hey, guys. That guy is amazing. That's David Israelite. You realize now how smart your leadership is. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is how in Nashville, a lot of the writers have families. They have kids. So they fight for their families when they deal with their own rights. And here, a lot of the writers are kids. And the A&R people and the managers and the executives, you have a responsibility to help educate your writers, because you'll see how valuable being educated in all of this is. So, okay, hold on. I'm going to get my speech. That wasn't part of it.
That was good.
That's just me off the cuff. That's freestyling is what that is. Because I'm a silver linings guy. So, I'm going to read this so I don't sound stupid. And let me get some shit out of the way first. The worst cancer in the mind of a songwriter is to think that the way the music industry was and the way the music industry is the way the music industry always is going to be. It doesn't have to be this way. We've heard a lot tonight about how and why songwriters are getting screwed and how we've been getting screwed for 110 years. We've been getting screwed since Theodore Roosevelt was president of the United States, and before Edison first recorded sound on a wax cylinder. This is true. So this appeal by the DSPs shouldn't be news to us, because it hasn't been news to the last 5 generations of songwriters. And it's not like the last 5 generations of songwriters haven't tried to change things. It was just that out of nowhere. A generation raised on LimeWire, Napster, and Pirate Bay. A generation that destroyed record stores. a generation of disorganized songwriters and artists, the ones that are still not allowed to legally unionize. It was that generation with one tweet, one post, one graphic, one phone call, one email at a time that took control of its collective future. That generation, as we discussed, passed the most comprehensive music legislation in 109 years. We are that generation. We are the songwriting community that has entered into a golden era of communication and transparency. We organized like never before, and we are still organized. Look at you. We fought like never before, and we fight still for fairness. We intimidated like never before, and we are stronger than ever. We took down a $500 billion hedge fund, a number of senators with special interests, and a multi-billion-dollar digital radio station, and in return got a unanimous vote in both the House and Senate for the Music Modernization Act. That's 100% of Democrats and 100% of Republicans standing in support of the future of songwriters and artists. That's what our generation did. And these are some things that our generation should still do. I say we should demand the following things. This is besides you guys who aren't here. Record labels need to provide a living wage for songwriters. If you want the right to be the first to release our music, then pay us for it. I'm asking for an advance of $4,550 per song to hold for a renewable term of 6 months for the exclusive right to release our songs first. That's $4,550, which is the mechanical royalty equivalent of 50,000 units sold, to be split equally amongst the writers, not including the artists. Record labels don't have to pay for manufacturing, distribution, or breakage. There is no legitimate excuse for labels to be in the golden era of their industry and to not compensate songwriters. You don't buy us plaques anymore. You can use those savings to buy us food. I guarantee the label that steps up first will get the songs first. Publishers need to provide access to affordable E&O insurance. For those who don't know what that is, errors and omissions insurance protects you if someone claims you've stolen their intellectual property. This would all but eliminate the need to preemptively give publishing to unintended interpolations and would free up cash flow in the event of litigation. I guarantee the publisher that steps up first will get the songs first. Performance rights organizations need to provide health care for qualifying songwriters. With 1.2 million members of ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and GMR, there is no reason other than complexities to not use that collective power to take care of the health of your writers. Perhaps both publishers and record labels could subsidize this initiative. After all, a healthy songwriter writes better songs than a sick one, and a songwriter with a healthy family writes better songs than a writer with a sick one. I guarantee the PRO that steps up first will get the songs first. Side note, the Grammys need to revisit qualification for Album of the Year to be all participants, not just those who wrote, produced, or recorded the minimum of 33% or more of an album. That just shows a gross misunderstanding of how albums are made in the 21st century. Why does Casey Musgraves have to stand on a stage for Album of the Year without the people who wrote the songs that got nominated for Song and Record of the Year? You know, when we fought to get songwriters added to Album of the Year, a NARIS member said, this is true, he said, "What next, caterers?" That's true. Well, your caterers got your Classics Act passed, and you're still not supporting us with the MLC. You're welcome. Here's also true. There's a new sheriff at NARIS, and we welcome her to be our friend, so do the right thing. NSAI and SONA, and the other trade organizations. Together we change the world, and it's time to centralize our efforts as much as legally possible. And I guarantee you the united trade organizations that step up first will get the songs first. Now, before I end tonight, I don't want to just complain about injustices in our industry. I don't want to lose sight of what a songwriter's goal is. Write great songs. That's one way to get paid more. Write the best song you've ever written. You want to be professional, act professional. Stay focused and beat your best song. Songwriting is not a game, it's a discipline. Be a soldier for your community. Because as I said in October when the MMA passed, we are not ASCAP or BMI or CSAC. We are not UMG or Warner or Sony. We are not major or indie. We are not artists or fans. We are the music army.
Boom. Ross Golan. I think we should bust out into a song or some shit. We have, what time is it? Yeah, we have like 15 minutes. We could take questions. We're going to have a microphone round. Hold on with that. Yeah. Do you want to, Chris, do you mind? This is Chris Horvath, one of the founding members of SONA, right there. Do you want to step up? Or Chris, why don't you just, can you hand him the mic? And then we'll just, right there's right over there.
Check 2, 1, 2.
Hey, would you guys, thanks for being here, this is great. Would you guys mind explaining the consent decree?
Sure. No, David can probably do it better. I wrote a song about it, actually.
Did you?
I did, yeah.
Consent decrees,
No,
consent decrees.
No, it goes,
Why do you hold us down?
actually, wait, it really does exist. It goes 0.000208 of a penny's what a songwriter makes.
Wow.
True.
There are people here from ASCAP and BMI that could probably even do a better job, but I'll try to do it briefly. So when you have a copyright, which is protected by the U.S. Constitution, it's protected in law, there are different ways that that copyright can get exploited. One of the ways is a mechanical reproduction, which of course means, it used to mean making copies of it, and in 1909 Congress decided to regulate that with a law. So now, today, mechanical reproductions, price is set by the government, it's a compulsory license. But your right to transmit your song to the public in a public way is not regulated by law. You have a property right, and you should be able to negotiate the value of it. In 1941, the Justice Department felt that two private companies, ASCAP and BMI, had too much market concentration compared to the fledgling broadcast industry. And so under antitrust law, the government stepped in and basically gave these organizations a choice. We can break you up, or you can agree to operate under what's known as a consent decree, which means we'll sign a contract together and you agree to operate in a certain way that we, the government, then blesses you to continue as a monopoly. And ASCAP and BMI entered into these consent decrees in 1941, and what they basically mean is that ASCAP and BMI cannot deny anyone who wants a license. If you ask for one, you're licensed. And if you can't agree on a price, you go to a single federal judge in the Southern District of New York, and that judge holds a trial and sets a price for you. There's a lot more to it, but if you want to boil it down, those are the two basic parts of it. Well, over time, of course, the people that ASCAP and BMI license have grown in their own market concentration. So that today, ASCAP and BMI are licensing industries that have much more concentration than they do, but yet these industries are protected by antitrust law against these two companies. And ASCAP and BMI provide a tremendous service. By blanket licensing their repertoire, it's efficient both for writers and publishers and also for the licensees. They fight like hell to get you the best possible rates that they can, but they do it with rules that are unfair to them because they don't get to negotiate in a free market the value of the copyrights that they are licensing with someone who wants to pay for them. And so because of that, there's been a lot of talk about changes to the consent decrees. And so those changes could come in the form of amendments that could make how they operate differently, and they could go all the way to the extreme of eventually getting rid of them, which is also something that's been talked about. The other two PROs, CSAC and GMR, don't operate under consent decrees. So when you want a license from those organizations, they do get to negotiate collectively in a free market, whereas ASCAP and BMI can't. And so that's what a consent decree is. They've never really meant to be around for as long as these have been around for. Most consent decrees are for a limited period of time and then they go away. But the ones that govern ASCAP and BMI never end, which is why ASCAP and BMI and NMPA are all engaging with the Justice Department to try to get some meaningful changes that would be better for those organizations. And they do a great job now, but they need to play under rules that are more fair to them.
Yeah, the word saloon is literally in the ASCAP consent decree. That's actually true. It talks about saloons.
Yeah, I'm going to say one thing about that too, real quick, which is that, as you can see, whether it was piano rolls and piano companies, or whether it was radio, or whether it was MTV, songwriters along the way have constantly said, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We keep saying, yeah, okay. And this is the first time where we're actually seeing the beginning of technology in a way where we can say, yeah, no, we're not going to go with those free bundles. That's why we need to get together, because we can actually change that, so that way in 70 years from now, they're not having a town hall talking about, why didn't those songwriters just throw hell? Why didn't they go and tweet? And why didn't they do that? They didn't have that in 1941, obviously. But the idea is that that's what we're doing right now, is what we wish they did then, and maybe they were, but they didn't succeed at it. And so this is why it's so important for you to stand up and continue to fight, even though it's hard to get your co-writers and to get your co-producers and your A&R people or your writers to pay attention. You need to pay attention now, because your grandkids are going to look back and judge you with how you acted today.
Thank you. What is the biggest threat to the MMA being reversed?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, you know that probably from what you're seeing in the Hill right now, on the Hill right now, right? With the,
Yes, well, I mean, the MMA is not going to get reversed. It's the law of the land. And there are several parts to it, many of which are just now settled. So, for example, the next time we go to one of these CRB trials, the rules are different in our favor. The next time ASCAP and BMI go to a rate trial, the rules are better in their favor. If you're an artist with pre-1972 copyrights, the law is now crystal clear that you have to get paid for those by satellite radio. Lots about it is settled. The one part that is ongoing is we are still in the process of building this new licensing structure, which has to become effective on January 1st, 2021. And while nothing's going to get reversed, there's a lot of work to do to make sure it works right. We're building a database, which they pay for, but we run. It'll be a public, transparent, the first ever database. You're going to now get 100% of your royalties passed through with no commission taken off the top, because they're paying for it, which is amazing. We're going to have an audit right, and we're going to have to do a better job than they did of matching the songs that they play with the owners of the songs. Because right now, the reason we had a problem with this bill is because they weren't doing a very good job of it. And now it's going to be our responsibility to do a better job. So there's a lot of work to do, but it won't be reversed. It's the law. The biggest threat to the success is them not funding it properly. And so we had hoped we would be able to get together and negotiate that funding out. That's not going to happen, which means what happens is we're going to have to go to a separate trial where the only question for the 3 Copyright Royalty Board judges, the CRB, the sole question will be, how much money do they have to pay for us to operate this new entity? And that trial is going to start on July 8th. It's going to last a year. And I have every confidence at the end of that trial, we're going to get what we asked for.
Other questions? Hey, Toby.
Hi. Is there something we can do now since we're all together? Could we collectively tweet something or hashtag something to have an impact?
That's a great question. I would say the thing to tweet now is about the CRB appeal, right? That's the thing we should probably be focused on in terms of the most imminent. The thing that we can do the most about in terms of publicly shaming these guys. I keep referring, it's so weird, it's like at Passover when you have the
Elijah.
Elijah.
No,
We're waiting for them to
look,
walk in the door.
their strategy is crystal clear. The reason they're not here tonight and weren't in Nashville, and you won't hear anything more from them after that ridiculous blog they put out, they've decided that their best strategy is to lie low and wait it out, and that you will forget. You will move on. So whatever you do tonight would be great, but what you really can do is not forget and make sure that as this appeal drags months down the road, we keep this issue front and center in the relationship between us and these digital companies so that they understand that there is a relationship price to be paid for taking these types of actions.
Yeah, for those of you who are writers and who are going to be in sessions, the writers who aren't here that you're writing with, be like, I saw this event, you wouldn't believe what happened, and tell them about this. Get that word out there. It will be word of mouth. If you are an A&R person or you're a manager, tell your writers about it. Teach them about this. Let them know that this is what's going on. Don't scare them. There's safety in numbers. And I mean, I'm a songwriter, I'm an artist, and I'm sitting up here and I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. So it's important that you guys don't be afraid of what's going to happen, because in reality, when you're right, things tend to just work out. It's what happened with the whole MMA. Every time one of these guys came up and said some bullshit, we came out and said, it's bullshit, and they stopped. So don't be afraid to say, if you want to tweet and be like, Spotify, where were you?
Yeah.
At Secret Genius, where were you? Hey, at Secret Geniuses, why weren't you at this event? Why aren't you, a lot of people signed the letter that the Secret Geniuses, that put out, the not so secret geniuses. Ask the ones that didn't sign it why they didn't sign it. Get these people engaged. It's you guys that are going to add the adrenaline and the fuel, and you're going to have to keep it going. That's the only way that this is going to happen. If we can't unionize, it's the best thing that we can do is to still communicate and still get your voice said. So don't be afraid to take a picture of this and ask where the Secret Genius is and where Spotify is. Ask where YouTube is and Google. Ask where Pandora is. Ask where Sirius is, if that's also Pandora now. Ask where Amazon is. Ask where these people are. It's only a fair question. Be like, we want to talk to you. We have nothing to hide. Why are you not here?
Okay.
I love that question. I feel like SONA is the step to a union. I feel like, because...
Yeah, can you explain why we are not legally allowed to unionize?
So songwriters are considered, think about who pays you, right? Like, you're not hired by, no one hires songwriters to write a song. I mean, unless you do work for hire, then it's very much hired. But if you're just writing a song for an artist, you're writing a song for yourself, no one's paying you to do that. You are a sole proprietor. You are basically a small business owner. When small business owners collectivize, there's like rules against that. There's like antitrust. They think we're colluding or rate setting or something like that. Yeah, no collusion. I've never set a rate in a writing session. I don't know, Ross. Have you ever set a rate? Have you ever discussed songwriter rates?
I asked David if I'm allowed to, and he says no.
No, I don't know. That's never come up in a session for me that we've ever compared things. So it feels a little bullshitty. It's an old law. It's an NLRB ruling from the National Labor. I can't explain Relations Board. Can't speak in acronyms tonight, but it's from the Reagan era. I feel like the main thing, even if it's not so much, we can't call it a union. I think that collectivizing for some kind of health insurance is probably a good place to start. Yeah? You with me? You with me? Because we are. Seriously, we're the only part of the entertainment industry that doesn't have some kind of group access to health insurance. Like, think about it. Like, dancers do, choreographers do, screenwriters do, songwriters, artists do through SAG-AFTRA, but songwriters don't have that avenue. So, yes, we need to do it.
Here's a question as a public service because it's been asked of me many times, and this panel should answer it. Does the MMA have any effect on, supersede, or influence the CRB?
Well, yes, because it changes the rules for the next CRB. So, not to get...
Just to expound on that a bit, because I get this question a lot as a member of SONA, and and people want to know. So I just would like this to go out to the people.
So before the MMA, when we would go to a trial, the judges are given what are known as rate standards, which basically means the rules to set the rates. The old law was a law known as 801B. It was a 4-part test, and basically it told the judges to balance the interests of the creators with the needs of the people using your songs. What the MMA changed was now the rule's going to be what's known as willing seller, willing buyer, which means the judges are supposed to say, if that songwriter were in a free market, what would they be able to get in charging the digital service for using the song? And we don't care the needs of the digital service. That's not a factor. It's simply about what would happen in a free market. Most observers believe that that new rate standard is going to lead to higher rates. So while we're fighting over the appeal of the last decision, the next time we go to trial, the law has changed the rules in our favor.
Okay. One more?
I was going to really quickly ask something, David, regarding the appeal process and the likely, you seem very confident that we'll come out victorious. I don't know a lot about how appeals work. Will the same it's 3 judges, will the same 3 judges be being asked, are they being asked to reverse their decision? Or is it 3 new judges?
Sure. And if I seem confident,
you should be.
It's because for those of you that haven't met our general counsel, Danielle Aguirre, who's here, she gives you a lot of confidence.
She's also an excellent golfer, I hear.
Excellent golfer. No, so what happens on the appeal is it's brought to an appellate court in the federal court system, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and the new court has to look at the decision and decide, did the CRB abuse their discretion when they set the rates? That's the standard on appeal.
Right.
That's a very hard thing to prove. There's never been an appeal in one of our CRBs before.
Right.
But generally, it would be very hard to overturn the decision of the court unless you felt they abused the discretion they were given under the law. And we just feel strongly that there's not a good case for that.
Great.
That's why we're confident.
Cool. Thank you. One more question, right?
Why the peanuts? Oh, thanks, Shelley. Thanks for setting up the joke. Because that's what they pay us.
So don't forget to pick up your royalties on the way out, folks. There's bags of peanuts. They're there for you. They're yours, kids. 10 million streams. That's your reward.
So my question is back to the union part.
Yeah. Everyone likes this question. I like it.
I'm actually a musicians union. I'm in the musicians union and Writers Guild and a whole bunch of things. Like when it comes to those unions, you can actually signatory yourself and make yourself a company and hire yourself. Is there a way we can do that as a songwriter, basically? Even if you're writing your own song, you come in as an entity and you're saying, I'm this songwriter's company and I wrote this song, that could get around the point where we can't unionize.
Okay, so here's what I say to that. Yes, first of all, join SONA, because I want you on the union work group.
Okay.
But I think what Ross was talking about in terms of that the living wage idea, that's a service, right? That's a service that is a situation where writers are being hired. It's like similar to being a composer, right? So maybe there's something in there where the contract service that could create a hired situation where we do have an employer that would help. But this needs to be done in, like, I think a work group where we're really kind of brainstorming and looking at ways in. Just know that at SONA, this is exactly what we're thinking about a lot. In addition to all the, advocating that we're doing in DC and holding the line for the, on the rates and getting the rate right. We got to keep the rate right. But from an organizing standpoint, I think there's a lot of interest. I know personally and collectively in finding a way to do this. So please talk to me about this. Yeah.
I'm gonna join
real
tonight.
quick,
Yes.
real quick with the living wage thing. What I was saying is that if labels can advance royalties to a producer, they should be able to advance mechanical royalties to writers, which publishers should like, because they should collect that and that would help recoup their writers' deals. The writers would get recoupment, the publishers would be happy, and if the writer was already recouped, then that money would go towards their wallet. That would at least shorten the time from when a song's released from when a writer gets paid. So
And a
that's what I
percentage
mean
of
by
that can go towards healthcare.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. But I was going to say one thing, which is that if you do one thing right now, besides tweet a picture of them and ask where they are, is go and it's so cheap to join SONA and NSAI. NSAI is called Nashville Songwriters Association, but they are a well-oiled machine, and all of you should join it. It's if you don't have E&O insurance, you can get E&O insurance from them if you aren't signed to a major publisher. Right now, join NSAI, join SONA.
You can join
while you're
both,
here.
totally.
You can join both. I am a member of both. It's not like there are no rules to this. Be active in it. It will cost you about probably like $100 to join, and you actually have access to these brilliant minds that are fighting for you in DC, and it will help you and your community move forward. So that's a really easy thing, an action you can do tonight before you go to sleep. Just fucking turn on your phone, go to the fucking websites.
We
and
are
join
Sona.com.
those things.
Yeah, we are Sona. Ross, working blue, my man, working blue.
I'm angry.
Any more questions, guys? I'm looking around. Anybody? I saw a gentleman with a hat.
Yeah,
Oh.
Damon.
Who?
Damon over there.
Okay. Hello. I'm coming.
Andrew, do I look good?
Me out of all the people.
I was pointing at Damon, but
Yeah, that's good.
Oh wow. Okay. This is like I've had 2 drinks, so it might come out awkward. But I just want to say that Ross's effort for the past 2 years between And the Writer Is and everything that you're doing, kind of drunk, but not really, is so unbelievably inspiring, because I feel like you are stepping out of the mold and doing what you said earlier, doing the right thing is always the highest truth and the most honorable thing you could do. And I feel like our industry has been built on so many things that are cool based, and I don't know why my voice is shaking. You are amazing. You really are amazing.
Thank you.
Yay,
And
Rossi.
what you are doing and what you what you're emblematic of in our generation is I feel like there has to be a tremendous reward for that for you, because it feels like the off beaten path that probably many of your peers are not on. And have looked to you since I moved to LA a year ago as like a beam of light, and I
Thank you.
really hope. Yeah, I
Appreciate
know everybody agrees with me, and it's really amazing. So thank you.
Be
That's
like
all.
Ross.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, who was the other? Oh, sorry about that.
So yeah, I want to piggyback a little bit on what she just said. Thank you so much for feeding us the information. I know as creators, we're all super ADD and we're kind of all over the place. To have you guys, especially when it was the MMA, I would see Ross's post all the time, and I was like, this is amazing. I can repost this and I can blast people with these images and get it out there. So thank you for doing that. My second question is, this might be a little ignorant of a question, but why do we always address what we're being paid by these people, as opposed to also addressing why the labels get the lion's share and we get such a small fraction? Why can we not address, similar to like, you know, if we get a TV or a film sync and it's 50-50, why does the label get the 3.8 and we get the 1?
That's a good question.
I mean, I think the answer is very simple. The film sync is the one area where both the label and the publisher are in a free market. No consent decree, no compulsory license, either one can say no. And the money is split 50-50. The problem we have in getting a fair rate, though, I don't blame the labels or the artists. They're doing what all natural actors would do in a free market. They're trying to negotiate the highest price for themselves, which is what they should be doing. Our problem is how the rules are set for us, because if we were all in a free market, you would see that balanced out in a very different way. And quite honestly, what the tech companies are doing, a lot of them are using your songs for other commercial purposes. I mean, Amazon is selling Prime memberships and Echo devices using music. Google is selling everything using music. Apple is selling devices using music. And so to look at the economics of their music store is short-sighted, because they get tremendous value from your songs beyond the $10 a month subscription that a consumer pays, because that consumer gets sucked into their ecosystem for other commercial transactions. If we were in a free market, we would be negotiating that type of deal. So focusing on the compulsory license, the consent decree, is designed to get us to a place like the synchronization where we're both in a free market.
Well, all right.
Thank you.
So that's going to be it for questions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
I just want to say thank you so much to David Israelite, so much to Ross Gollin, Charlotte Selmeyer's in the back. Thank you from NMPA. Thank you guys so much for coming. Join SONA. I have to thank Brendan Okrent for putting this together. Thank you so much. And the SONA board, you'll see us with like our little SONA pins on. Come say hi. Come join SONA. And thank you so much for being here.